The world right now needs us to be our authentic selves. And the reason we got where we are right now is because of people not being authentic, not living to higher values, living out of fear, living out of greed, living out of competition. Being in community invites us to express our authentic selves and practice being who we are in the world.
This is Collapse Club. I'm David Baum in Seattle. My guest is Charlotte Del Signore, a career coach and mindfulness teacher who is seeking her authentic self and is helping other people, particularly younger people, to find themselves as well. Charlotte lived for a year in a camper van traveling the countryside of England, and she's now looking to establish herself in London, where she hopes to find or to build a community of people who can face collapse together. We spoke on May 28, 2024. Could you describe the work that you do and how it brings you in touch with younger people?
Yes, so I'm a career coach. I work with all age groups, but in particular millennials who have been in the workplace for a number of years, who are feeling dissatisfied with the work that they're doing and feeling like they're lacking a sense of meaning. So they come to me and I help them connect to who they are authentically and start to explore what they really want to do that's aligned with who they really are and their values.
How old is a millennial person?
A millennial is late 20s to early 40s, I believe.
So you're helping them find out what they want to do. Does that collide with your knowledge and understanding of collapse?
What people are awakening to is that they've been living a lie and that they've been living in a system that is unhealthy, that's been feeding and creating the collapse. And many people want to take a distance from the harm that they're creating through the job that they're doing and to find something that's actually doing good in the world.
Do people seek you out because they have this realization of doing harm, or is that something you help them understand when you work with them?
I think it starts with the harm that they're doing to themselves. A lot of the people I work with, they never really ask themselves, what do I want? And they fell into a career because that's what their parents wanted, or it connects to what they studied at university. And so they fall into a career, and 10 years later, they wake up wondering, what the hell have I been doing all this time? That's causing me to feel like I have a burnout, is causing me to feel disconnected from who I am and not having any sense of purpose. Most of my clients aren't collapse aware, but I'm seeing increasing numbers of people bringing in their fear of what's happening around them, even if they're not aware of it being related to collapse, but they're sensing something. They're feeling that working in corporate environments isn't the right thing anymore.
But you have an awareness of collapse.
Yes, I'm quite a recent collapse aware person. It only clicked at the end of last year, so about 6 months ago. Prior to that, I was certainly aware that something was up since COVID, but it was just before Christmas that I stumbled upon the science and overshoot and all the rest of it. And that was the moment when I became collapse aware. So I've been on my own journey, which has involved spending time with the grief. I actually joined the Good Grief Network. They offer a 10-week program. So part of me connecting to my purpose has involved reconnecting to myself and noticing also where I have been avoiding my emotions because it's really, really hard to face this stuff. Which addictions have been reignited, also noticing the addiction that I've had for a while of collapse content and realizing that every day I'm on Twitter, I'm on Reddit, reading more and more of this content, but asking myself, what benefit is that having for me? Because I know the scenario, I know enough. Do I need to know more? And what I realized was the more I was reading, the more I was disconnecting from my emotions, because it was a way to avoid myself and to avoid the grief. And so I've sort of become aware of that. So I try to just spend an hour or two a week engaging in that content. And what's more important is actually feeling the pain, the sadness of what's going on in Gaza, feeling the fear of what's to come, the unknown, the uncertainty. And I think that's a really important part of living through this, is to feel it. We are human beings, and to be is to feel. So I would encourage anyone to seek out practices, rituals, support networks that create a holding space for you to be with your emotions. Because if you're not with them, it will live out in your body.
Has your encounter with your emotions led to changes in how you live your life?
Definitely. It's opened my heart up. And there are certainly blessings in all of this, and I'd say that's one of them. I have resolved some difficult relationships in my family, so it's opened that up. And I'm just more compassionate in how I engage with others in my day-to-day life. It's changed some of my habits, so I'm very mindful about what I'm buying, where I'm buying it from, who I'm giving my money to, where I'm putting my attention on social media, what news outlets I'm engaging with. And I'm still doing it. I'm sort of doing an audit through my life, through each piece of my life, and just slightly editing each piece as I go along, step by step. No major changes, but just small changes one by one. And just trying to be mindful about the thoughts. Our actions start with our thoughts. So what thoughts am I allowing in this mind of mine? And what words am I sharing? And what actions am I making? All of these things ripple out. It might seem small, but it ripples out to the next person, to the next person. So being mindful about how I show up in the world.
Have you noticed changes in how the world responds to you?
I can say when you act from a place of fear, you'll get that back, like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And obviously that's quite difficult. It's difficult to not be fearful in these times. But right now, in my environment, there's nothing to be fearful about. When shit hits the fan, that's a different scenario. Fear then acts as a trigger to take action to protect yourself. But right now, I'm safe. There's nothing to be afraid of in this moment. So instead, acting from love will then manifest a more loving response from others, or it may manifest what you want.
You mentioned you joined the Good Grief Network and worked their program. Have you used a variety of tools?
So what I got from the Good Grief Network, I got many things from it. And one was self-care. I think it all starts with self-care. I'm a coach. I can't support other people if I'm not supporting myself. And that applies to all of us. We need to put our own mask on first before we can look after others. So that was a big part of it. And the other was feeling not alone in this. So when I first became collapse aware, I didn't know anybody in the whole world that was also collapse aware. So I was holding this all by myself. And that's when I did some Google searches and found Collapse Club. And so both Collapse Club and the Good Grief Network are really beautiful spaces where you can just say what you're feeling and not be judged and not be told that you're crazy or you're catastrophizing. And there's just so much power in community and community building, either joining a community, or if there isn't a community in your environment, creating a community.
You lived in a van for a year.
Yes, I did.
Why?
For a number of reasons. I moved back to the UK from Holland 3 years ago and was trying to find my place in the UK. And because I work for myself, I needed to show 3 years of financial records in order to rent. And so that wasn't possible. And the other option was to pay a year's rent up front. And I wanted to live in London, and that's an awful lot of money. And I just didn't want to hand that over. So I thought, well, what else can I do that would actually be nourishing? So I decided to do camper van life for a year and get to explore the country and to save some money and consider my next moves. It's a really unusual way of living, but also it gave me the opportunity to connect with nature and myself, which was a beautiful experience. But what I learned was that so much of the English countryside is actually private land. And my expectation was that I would just be in nature the whole time, wandering through the rolling hills of England. And actually, so much of it is shut off to the public, and so many of the rivers and the lakes are on private land. So it really opened up my eyes to what nature we have and what's actually made publicly available. And there's very little.
Now you're looking for more conventional lodgings?
So now I am returning back to normal life. I will be moving to London, living in a rented flat, paying extortionate rents as a single person. But London right now feels like the right place to be with people, to experience the culture. I'm also quite apprehensive about London and how safe it is, or how long it will be this safe. But it also feels like the right place to be, especially as, for me, community is the most important thing in my life at the moment. And finding, it's amazing having Collapse Club and all these communities online, but we also need in-person meetups as well. So that's what I'm looking to create. And also looking to create, I'm a mindfulness teacher as well, and creating spaces for others to come together and to grieve what we're losing.
What do you think is the important function of community, of being with others in consciousness of collapse?
The world right now needs us to be our authentic selves. And the reason we got where we are right now is because of people not being authentic, not living to higher values, living out of fear, living out of greed, living out of competition. Being in community invites us to express our authentic selves and practice being who we are in the world. It's all very well practicing mindfulness and doing yoga alone, but the real practice is showing up with others as who you really are. And also, this is really, really hard stuff, and we can't do it alone. We need other people, and we need other people that get us. I think for all of us who are collapse aware, we're all having that experience of family members and friends not being collapse aware, and how that makes us feel alien and like in our own suffering. To be understood and to be seen, and for it to be okay to be angry, to be sad, to be grieving.
What do you think is the result of doing that kind of work, when we confront our own feelings and feel them and express them and join with others? Where do we end up?
I feel that connects us to a greater sense of purpose. When I show up authentically, I am giving you the invitation to show up authentically. I think that's the great gift of being real. The more of us that are real in the world, the more that, again, ripples out and invites others to be real. It's an example of modeling that behavior of authenticity and choosing love and kindness over fear.
I have come across over and over again recently the two ideas that go together. One is we must allow ourselves to feel our feelings, and we must join with others to let that happen.
Yeah, I mean, we've become a very individualistic society. We used to live in tribes. We used to be able to rely on a group of people to support us through difficult times, to hold us and our emotions. And many of us are very much alone, even in our relationships with others. It's not natural for a lot of people to speak from the heart, to share what's really going on, and it's not always welcomed. And that's the society that we live in. And I believe that as more people awaken to what's going on, it's an invitation to awaken one's heart. I think out of need, people will need support. So it almost be forced upon people to start expressing what's really going on inside.
That was Charlotte Del Signore on Collapse Club. You can find links to her LinkedIn page and her TikTok channel in the program notes. Here at Collapse Club, we offer 3 meetings a week where we talk about our experience of collapse. If you feel alone with your knowledge of collapse and need people to talk to, please visit our website at collapseclub.com and sign up for our newsletter. We look forward to seeing you. I'm David Baum in Seattle. Until we meet again, farewell.